Honestly, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do here. There are like 200 something new cards for Doctor Who, and since I'm not going to make a 4-hour video, I guess we'll just start going over them in bunches. So let's jump into the video and look at our first batch of new Doctor Who cards. Thank you everybody for watching, and if you guys are new here, please be sure to click that subscribe button. If you're a returning subscriber, feel free to like the video, click the bell icon to stay notified when new videos are posted. Took a couple days off, had a few things going on, but I'm back and ready to cover this, and unfortunately I may have picked a terrible time because there are so many cards, and that's good for content purposes, but like, there's just so much stuff to cover. If you guys haven't been following along, the Doctor Who Universes Beyond set comes out on October 13th. It's just decks and collector boosters, so there's no like set boosters and stuff, but the decks include a combination of reprints and new cards. So we're gonna look at new cards in, you know, the first couple videos coming up this week, and then we'll do a video talking about some of the noteworthy reprints across all the decks, just because I just don't think there's enough. It would take so much time to cover that in the same video. So we're gonna jump right into it. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think out of these first slated reveals. And yeah, so we're just going to get started. I don't know too much about Doctor Who's lore and backstory, so whether or not these cards are like thematically accurate is something you're going to have to leave up to somebody else. But let's look at them from a playability perspective, starting off with Riversongs Diary. This is a 3-cost artifact that has imprint. Whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell from their hand, exile it instead of putting it into a graveyard as it resolves. At the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 4 or more cards exiled with Riversongs Diary, choose one of them at random. You may cast it without paying its mana cost. So, this is pretty cool. I do like it's a bit more interesting. Obviously, the randomness of it does kind of hurt any strategy play. But basically, being able to exile stuff, if you're playing against, you know, decks that utilize a lot of flashback or recasting instant sorceries from the grave, this can kind of get rid of that to an extent. It's certainly a cool card, and you could probably combo it with some of your own sort of recyclable things that you want to use, because when you do cast the card from exile, it then goes to the grave, because at least as far as I can tell, because it only exiles when it is cast from the hand. So it's an interesting card. I think there's definitely some combos you might be able to do with it, but it doesn't really strike me as anything crazy right off the bat. Genesis of the Dollx is 4 black, and it is a saga with the first 3 phases saying create a 3/3 black Dalek artifact creature token with menace for each lore counter on this card. Then, on the 4th step, target opponent faces a villainous choice. Destroy all Dalek creatures, and each of your opponents loses life equal to the total power of all Daleks that died this turn, or destroy all non-Dalek creatures. I think this is a really freaking cool card, especially because it starts to stack on the lore counter. So, the first turn you make 1, the second turn you make 2, the third turn you make 3. That's a total of 6 by the time the 4th turn comes around if the opponent doesn't get rid of them. And then so if they're going to pop them, they're going to take 18 damage, or they're going to destroy all the other creatures that aren't Daleks. And so this card actually feels really strong, especially because target opponent faces that choice, but all opponents lose life equal to the total power of the Daleks that die. So there's some interesting combo potential here, just to swing for, you know, at least 18 damage to each opponent is cutting life totals in half. And that's, you know, assuming you don't have other Daleks. I would imagine in a lot of cases they're probably going to destroy, you know, all the other creatures. But then again, it's like, can you bounce back from that when you're facing down against so many creatures with menace? There's just a lot of things to like about this card as a whole. K9 Mark 1 is a 1-drop blue legendary artifact creature robot dog with negative. As long as it is untapped, other legendary creatures you control have ward 1. It also has affirmative 1 and a blue. Tap target legendary creature can't be blocked this turn. And then it has Doctor's Companion, which is essentially a version of partner that allows you to have 2 commanders if one of them is the Doctor. I like it. It's pretty cool, actually. It's kind of an interesting, you know, obviously it only costs 1 to bring out, and then you can give ward to your other Doctors. It's across the board, just a pretty cool card. I don't know too much about whether or not, like, there are going to be some better companion options. I'll be honest, I haven't even gone through all the reveals yet. I've gone through more than you're seeing in this video, but there's been so many, and I'm trying to, like, pick which ones are going to be worth it to do for content purposes and which ones might just be filler and not really worth covering. But either way, I mean, this is a pretty cool card. Alright, next up we've got Blink, and this one is a saga that is 2 blue-black, and this one's weird because on 1 and 3 it has an effect, and then on 2 and 4 it has a separate effect. So I never seen a saga that interchanges like that. Maybe they exist, I don't know, I just haven't seen them. So for 1 and 3, you choose target creature, its owner shuffles it into the library, then investigates, and then for 2 and 4, you create a 2/2 black alien artifact creature token with first strike vigilance, and whenever an opponent casts a creature spell, this permanent isn't a creature until the end of turn, so it can basically shut itself off from being a creature so it can stay safe for, you know, other things the opponent might throw at you. This is pretty interesting, at least from a concept perspective. And like I said, the fact that it like alternates lore phases for activation is definitely a bit of a unique mechanic. I don't think we've seen too much of in the game going up now. Crisis of Confidence is 4 white sorcery. Choose one. Destroy all tokens or destroy all non-land, non-token permanents. So it costs the same as Farewell, which obviously does a lot more. However, if you don't play tokens, you can definitely utilize this to get rid of, you know, some more problematic strategies that are very popular in Commander to get rid of tokens. So it's certainly an option to consider, but it does cost a bit of mana. And then, of course, it can just be a board wipe that destroys everything except tokens. Farewell's just kind of inherently better, I think, but there might be uses for this depending on, you know, what decks you're playing against and whether or not you're able to, you know, utilize the fact that you can destroy all the tokens but not destroy other stuff, you know, or if you play a big, strong token deck, you can actually destroy everything but your tokens. So there are some ways to make this work that definitely make it worth looking at least, but it's actually a pretty interesting card. What do you guys think of this one? Let me know in the comments, because I've seen a lot of people compare it to Farewell and obviously other cards like Wrath of God, but I think this one is definitely a bit, you know, unique in its own right, while maybe being a little bit weaker at the same time. Day of the Moon is 2 in a red, and it has 3 steps, and each step is the same. So choose a creature card name, then go to all creatures with a name chosen for Day of the Moon. So you can obviously stack up to 3 names on this, and then, you know, basically goad all of them. This feels somewhat okay. I guess if you're playing against decks that, like, maybe like a token spam deck where all the creatures have the same name, or something where there's a lot of things with the same, you can do it. It's not bad or anything. It's just, I don't know, it doesn't strike me as very good on first read. But that could always change, you know, in practice. I'll have to see, you know, what this does in terms of actual slotting into decks. It just kind of strikes me as a bit weak, though, on the surface. Bigger on the inside, 3 red, black, and enchantment aura. Enchant artifact or land. Enchanted Permanent has tap. Target player adds 2 mana of any one color. The next spell they cast this turn has Cascade. I do like this, so you can basically tap a land to get, you know, 2, or an artifact, obviously. So, like, I don't know, you can enchant, like, a treasure token with this, and then you don't have to sack it. You can just tap it for 2 mana of any color. But being able to trigger Cascade once per turn is pretty cool if you're playing decks that can utilize it. You know, the color combinations here, green definitely has a lot of Cascade potential with a lot of big creatures that are popular. Red certainly has some as well. I do worry this is a little costly in terms of its actual play, but I don't know. It's hard to say. There's obviously a reason it's an uncommon versus a rare. I think it could have been a lot better if it cost a bit less, but it might have been a bit busted in that case, being able to just, like, you know, Cascade every turn, especially in decks that already do Cascade. You can just bypass a lot of things. However, one of the doctors that we talked about in a previous video a while back does utilize the suspend mechanic, and so there are some cards that have very low mana cost that, you know, suspend, but you can bypass that by cascading into them. So perhaps in one of those decks, this card could find a home. Gallifrey Stands. It is 4 white-blue legendary enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, return all Doctor cards from your graveyard to your hand. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a Doctor creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. Then, if you control 13 or more Doctors, you win the game. It's an alternate win con. It's definitely cool from that perspective, but other than that, I don't really see too much. I mean, it's a little slow. I know there are 13 different Doctors at least, and some of them are pretty solid, but I don't even know how you're really gonna... I mean, like... Would this work with, like, changelings, maybe? I don't know. Could you make it work with changelings, and then you can kind of spam, you know, the board a little bit faster? I guess there is that. I don't know, though. I mean, it doesn't say the Doctors have to have different names, so you can certainly copy them with things like Helm of the Host or other things that ignore the legendary rule, but this doesn't... I mean, it's neat, but I just don't know. It feels costly, and it feels more gimmicky than anything, in my opinion. Now, we've got one of those interesting fuse cards here back. It's been a while since we've seen one of those. Gallifrey Falls and No More. So one side of it is 4 red. Instant deals 4 damage to each creature. If a creature dealt damage this way would die this turn, exile it instead. So it's just like a weaker blasphemous act for the most part. And then No More is any number of target creature control phase out. And it does have fuse. You may cast one or both halves of this card from your hand. So you can play both at the same time. That's going to cost you a lot of mana. However, I can see the obvious, you know, combination of playing it and then phasing your stuff out. So maybe late game you can deal a lot of damage, but your creatures are safe. Not really anything crazy to write home about, I don't think, but it is a cool design, and it's cool to see a new, you know, one of these cards. It's been a while since we've gotten a new card with that mechanic. Run for Your Life is 1 blue, 1 red instant. 1 or 2 target creatures each gain haste until end of turn. They can't be blocked this turn except by creatures with haste. And then it has Escape, 2 blue, red. Exile 4 other cards from your graveyard. You may, of course, cast this from your grave for its escape cost. So, honestly, not terrible, especially with, you know, red and blue both having, you know, a lot of creatures that can benefit from this. And making things unblockable is definitely neat. Of course, if you're playing against creatures with haste, they can be blocked. But this is a relatively low cost to to be able to do some pretty significant damage, especially if you're bringing stuff out and able to reduce the amount of mana you have to spend to cast stuff. It's kind of decent enough that it might be worth a look to some people. Wibbly Wobbly Timey Wimey. That's a sentence I never thought I'd say. That is 1 in a blue sorcery that says time travel. For each suspended card you own and each permanent you control with a time counter, you may add or remove one. Then draw cards. I love this time travel mechanic. I think it's really, really cool that they're kind of working this into the set. I hope that, you know, we get to see some of the older suspend cards, even the ones from like Modern Horizons 2, Modern Horizons 1, whatever, you know, maybe get some play now, because they're definitely a lot more viable with some of these new cards that make it so much easier to play into that suspend mechanic. But this card's pretty good. Obviously, it's a pretty much an auto include if you're playing blue and have suspend. But other than that, there's not too much to say about it. We've got Joe Grant. It's 2 and a white legendary creature, human soldier. Each historic card in your hand has cycling to white. Whenever you cycle a card, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and it has Doctor's Companion. So historic being, I believe, artifact, legendary, or is it enchantment? I think I don't remember off the top of my head. This card is a alternate art version of it, but either way, I mean, we talked about historic stuff in the last video because there's a commander that actually directly correlates with it. But being able to cycle some of your maybe dead cards, things that you don't need as much, and put counters on this, I don't think it's crazy good, but because it is a companion and you can play it in addition to a doctor, it does give you a little bit more color options in your color identity, and it can give you the ability to fix your hands if you get some pretty, you know, pretty dud draws. And then Perry Brown is 3 and a white legendary creature, human. The first historic spell you cast each turn has Convoke, and then this also has Doctor's Companion. Another solid option, being able to, you know, cast stuff if you're playing like a spam. I mean, obviously humans have the ability to do that, so as a commander, maybe without the Doctor, this could be kind of interesting, but being able to make a lot of tokens and then tap those to cast stuff could certainly be interesting. It's not crazy good, but again, the fact that it has the companion thing going for it and the ability to maneuver its way into different builds and different color identities definitely makes it at least interesting from a building perspective. That's the first slate of cards. I know I threw those kind of quick, but like some of them are underwhelming, some are kind of cool. I'm trying to pick which ones are worth covering and which ones aren't, just because of how many there are. But if you guys have any thoughts on any of these, let me know in the comments down below. Stay tuned all week. I'm going to be uploading more videos covering stuff as I can, and there are some pretty cool cards with some really unique concepts that I've already looked at that I want to include in a future video. So there will be plenty more to come on this. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.